It began with something quiet, a letter, sealed in good faith, written not to a nation, but to a man. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, has long been a figure caught between candour and caution. Where others in the royal family chose silence, she chose words. And for a time, those words seemed to heal her reputation. Memoirs, interviews, public apologies. But behind the polished reinventions was a private language known only to two people, Sarah and Andrew. Years after their divorce, she wrote to him again. The letters were tender, familiar, unguarded. They spoke of affection unburdened by title, of loyalty that outlasted ceremony. They revealed what the monarchy rarely admits, that devotion can survive the dismantling of marriage. But when those letters reached the public domain, their meaning changed. Intimacy became evidence. Emotion became spectacle. What was once personal solace became, in the eyes of the press, a breach of royal discretion. It was never the content that shocked, but the tone, too warm for exes, too human for Windsor. In a palace defined by restraint, her vulnerability felt like rebellion. And so, the story opened not with scandal, but with sincerity. A sincerity that refused to stay contained. As the pen glides across cream paper, the camera lingers on the ink still wet. An emblem of loyalty turned liability. The voice of the nation leans closer, not to condemn, but to understand. What happens when honesty itself becomes the most unroyal act of all? In the royal world, disappearance is often the first act of redemption. But Sarah Ferguson never disappeared. Where others faded into discretion, she re-emerged into the light. Not as a duchess seeking forgiveness, but as a woman determined to redefine what forgiveness looked like. After the photographs, the headlines, the quiet exiling from palace corridors, she began again. In ink, in speech, in presence. Children's books, television interviews, wellness talks. Her name, once synonymous with embarrassment, was suddenly attached to words like inspiration and resilience. Her voice softened, her laughter grew measured, her wardrobe spoke of calm rather than spectacle. Every appearance seemed curated for a new kind of grace, the grace of survival. She positioned herself as a teacher of empathy, an advocate of kindness, a woman who had learned to live with both privilege and consequence. The media called it a reinvention. Courtiers called it persistence. To her daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, it was simply their mother, flawed, familiar, and trying. Behind the public optimism, though, the shadows of old ties remained. Her connection to Prince Andrew never truly broke, it only evolved. Their correspondence continued. Tender at times, practical at others. Letters that wove domestic affection with quiet dependency. The world saw friendship. The undertone was something softer, unlabelled, enduring. Observers wondered if this closeness helped or hindered her recovery. Could a woman so determined to rebuild her image ever fully step out of the shadow that had once undone her? The answer seemed to rest somewhere between loyalty and necessity. She had become a figure of paradox, visible yet contained, independent yet still orbiting the same gravitational centre. Each television segment, each gala, each signed book carried the same invisible burden, to prove she was more than the sum of her mistakes, without ever disowning the man at the heart of them. And that perhaps was the quiet irony of her redemption. She was rebuilding a new image using the very loyalty that had once cost her everything. As the montage fades, smiling photographs, school visits, red carpets, the camera lingers on a quiet image. Fergie at a desk, writing another letter. The ink is steady now, the tone calm. But the words, even in privacy, still circle the same familiar name. Behind the polished reinvention lay a quieter reality, one that cameras rarely lingered on. While the world applauded her comeback, Sarah Ferguson's private life became a study in survival, not of glamour, but of endurance. The scandals had faded, but their cost remained. Invoices, interest, and expectation, all quietly accumulating behind the smile. Her business ventures came and went with the rhythm of hope and disappointment. There were lifestyle brands, publishing deals, endorsements that promised stability and delivered anxiety. Every new enterprise began with optimism and ended with the same refrain, mounting debts and renewed scrutiny. The press tracked her finances with the same appetite once reserved for romance. Reinvention, they wrote, was proving expensive. Through it all, one presence remained constant: Prince Andrew. Her former husband, her confidant, her refuge, he offered a home at Royal Lodge, the grace and favour residence she would occupy for decades after their separation. To some it was touching, a symbol of compassion between two people who had weathered too much together. To others, it was troubling, a sign that independence, for Fergie, was always conditional. Within those walls, affection and obligation coexisted uneasily. There were reports of financial assistance, quiet loans, and favours granted without fanfare. Each act of generosity deepened both gratitude and dependence. And while she called him her supreme friend, the title carried a weight few could see, the price of remaining close to a man who himself was falling from grace. Observers noted that her loyalty seemed less strategic than instinctive, born from a kind of emotional gravity. Even as the monarchy distanced itself, she drew nearer. It was a bond that blurred all sense of boundaries, personal, financial, reputational. Her letters to Andrew from this period tell the story more honestly than any interview. They are filled with thanks, with warmth, and with something resembling weariness. "Thank you for believing in me," she wrote in one. "You are my home." But even the most gracious homes have locks, and in Windsor only one key truly fit. For all her outward optimism, fatigue crept in, the exhaustion of rebuilding under the same roof where her ruin had begun. Each favour accepted was a reminder of dependence, each gesture of kindness another quiet admission that she could not yet stand alone. In the economy of the monarchy, restraint is a form of currency. And Sarah Ferguson, loyal, emotional, generous to a fault, spent hers freely, not just in money, but in trust, in hope, in the belief that devotion would one day be enough. As the camera drifts over unopened letters, beside unpaid bills, the afternoon light fades across the royal lodge. The scene feels still, almost gentle, but within that stillness, a question lingers. What, in the end, was the true price of being loyal to love that would never quite let her go? The storm did not arrive with thunder, it came quietly, through envelopes, quotations, and implication. Private words, once folded carefully between friends, surfaced in public light. Phrases written for one pair of eyes became headline fragments. Supreme friend. Eternal gratitude. What had once been tender now sounded theatrical, almost incriminating when torn from its context. For years, Sarah Ferguson had balanced candour against caution. This time, she lost the balance completely, not through betrayal, but through revelation. Her affection, once her refuge, became her undoing. Reporters passed every adjective, every flourish of punctuation, reconstructing intimacy into evidence. The tabloids, ever patient, treated emotion as obsession, and in a palace that measures dignity in silence, her openness became a fresh offence. The monarchy's response was perfectly rehearsed. No response at all. No defence, no denial, no acknowledgement. Only the cold efficiency of distance. Behind closed doors, courtiers murmured about boundaries, about how familiarity could compromise the crown's composure. Publicly, the institution said nothing, which in royal language says everything. For Sarah, the echo was devastatingly familiar. The world that had once forgiven her now smiled knowingly, as if relapse were inevitable. Morning walks near Windsor were photographed again, this time captioned as proof of dependency. Her charity work, her interviews, her letters, all reframed as gestures of desperation. Even her daughters could not escape the commentary. "Why can't Mummy let go?" one headline asked. It wasn't accusation, it was pity disguised as curiosity. But this was no scandal in the traditional sense. There was no crime, no impropriety, only sentiment. And yet, in the machinery of monarchy, sentiment can be as dangerous as sin. For an institution built on mystique, transparency is a threat. Affection must be coded, loyalty implied, love contained. Sarah Ferguson had once again broken the unspoken rule. She felt too publicly. The collapse was not loud. It was a sigh drawn from a country that had seen this play before. A woman who tried to love without armour, and a system that required armour above all. As the rain gathers against the windows of Windsor, headlines fade into silence. The camera lingers on a sealed envelope, untouched, waiting. It is the image of a relationship neither living nor gone, suspended between compassion and consequence. And in that stillness, the contradiction completes its circle. In royal life, even love must request permission, and even loyalty can be mistaken for weakness. In the end, silence became her strategy, not imposed but chosen. After the letters, the headlines, and the weary repetition of public judgment, Sarah Ferguson simply stopped explaining. The interviews ceased. The laughter that once filled talk shows retreated into private rooms. Her redemption would no longer be sought through words, but through quiet presence. She reappeared only where duty demanded, beside her daughters at weddings, funerals, and family gatherings. Always courteous, never central. Her gestures were smaller now, her voice gentler, her expressions rehearsed in the language of restraint. For the first time, she seemed to understand that in royal life, endurance is not performed, it is observed. Within the family, civility replaced affection. King Charles extended polite recognition, the kind reserved for those who once belonged. The late Queen, ever the moral compass, maintained a discreet fondness, the kind that forgives without forgetting. But true rehabilitation never arrived. No official role, no full return. She remained welcome, yet peripheral, loved but limited. And when Prince Andrew's own controversies emerged years later, history repeated itself in a quieter key. Where others distanced themselves, Fergie drew close again. Loyal as ever, protective, unwilling to let him face disgrace alone. To many it seemed folly. To her it was principle. Devotion reborn as duty, the same thread that had bound her since 1986, woven now with age, compassion and unlearned caution. Public sentiment softened. The nation that once mocked her excess began to respect her endurance. She had survived ridicule, rejection, reinvention, not through defiance, but persistence. In an institution built to reward silence, she had finally learned how to speak without words. Yet, her truest portrait remains unwritten, or rather, written long ago. Those letters, kept and quoted, still form the most honest biography she never authorised. In them lives a woman unguarded by protocol, defined not by scandal, but by feeling. They remind us that within the monarchy's theatre of perfection, humanity remains the only unscripted act. And for all her missteps, Sarah Ferguson's greatest transgression may have been her refusal to stop being human. As the camera pans across a royal procession, it catches her briefly, half smiling, half forgotten, the living echo of lessons the crown prefers to overlook. Not triumphant, not tragic, simply enduring. History will not remember Sarah Ferguson for crowns or ceremonies, but for the simple fact that she stayed. In a world that rewards discretion and punishes warmth, she remained defiantly human. Her life, traced in ink and consequence, revealed the monarchy's most fragile truth, that loyalty, when too visible, can look like defiance. Her devotion to Prince Andrew was never tidy. It was enduring, inconvenient, and deeply sincere. It carried her through ridicule and exile, through laughter that was too loud, and forgiveness that was never quite complete. It blurred the border between redemption and dependence, between love that saves and love that binds. And yet, for all its complexity, it made her real. Among courtiers polished into silence, she was unguarded. Among reputations engineered to survive, hers simply endured. She gave the crown something it rarely tolerates: emotion unedited. Observers will debate her choices, her debts, her return to Windsor. But beneath every controversy lies a quieter achievement. She never hardened. Even when the world mocked her openness, she met it with empathy. Even when forgiveness faltered, she continued to offer it. In the end, her story is not one of scandal, but of stubborn grace. A woman who lived through humiliation and still chose affection. Who lost her place and yet never lost her warmth. As morning light spills across the Thames, the final image lingers, not of disgrace nor redemption, but of quiet persistence. Because behind the marble and the myths, Sarah Ferguson stands as a reminder that in a family built on distance, it is still possible and perilous to love without disguise.